On a typical Tuesday afternoon in Cottonwood Estates, our immaculate, gated enclave just beyond Tallahassee, I was in my garage, polishing my Harley-Davidson while staying on a conference call with the state attorney's office about an HOA fraud case I was consulting on. That's when the sirens came. Not just one patrol car, mind you, but 3 cruisers barreling down our usually serene street. Above them, a drone hovered, its camera fixed squarely on my property. On my front lawn, 15-year-old Trevor Well lay sprawled theatrically across the grass, clutching a Monster energy drink and howling as if mortally wounded. Beside him stood his mother, Claudia Well, our HOA president and self-appointed neighborhood guardian, arms crossed, clad in her trademark power-walking outfit and wearing a smirk that could curdle milk. She was yelling about child theft and pointing at me with all the fury of 1,000 suns. "That man emotionally damaged my son," she shrieked as the officers drew near. "He refused to give Trevor his motorcycle under the youthful desires provision. I demand you arrest him immediately." I went on polishing my chrome, my Bluetooth earpiece still connecting me to Assistant State Attorney Harrison, who was listening to every word. The officers looked puzzled, probably because the so-called youthful desires provision existed only in Claudia's imagination. One officer edged closer while I deliberately explained constitutional property law to Harrison loudly enough for all to hear. "My name is Dale Baham. I'm a semi-retired security consultant who moved to Cottonwood Estates 3 years ago seeking peace and quiet. My pleasures are simple: strong coffee, my vintage Harley, and blessed silence. I keep to myself, maintain my property, and live by one golden rule: leave me alone and I'll return the favor." Unfortunately, Claudia Well never got that memo. For 6 years, Claudia had ruled our little neighborhood as HOA president with an iron fist wrapped in passive-aggressive notes. She once even threatened legal action against a neighbor's golden retriever for excessive sniffing near her prized rose bushes. Her son, Trevor, a professional Fortnite player with the muscle tone of overcooked spaghetti, had become strangely obsessed with my motorcycle after seeing me ride it exactly once. The harassment started small. First, there were the passive-aggressive notes tucked beneath my windshield wiper, scrawled in purple gel pen. "Dear resident," they would begin, "your loud, obnoxious vehicle is disturbing the peace and tranquility of our family-oriented community." They were never signed, of course, but the handwriting matched the HOA violation notices she loved distributing like Halloween candy. Then came the official-looking citations, handwritten on HOA letterhead she'd clearly printed at home, demanding I remove what she called the loud, vulgar machine within 72 hours or face fines. The problem was motorcycles weren't prohibited in our CC&Rs, and I kept mine in a closed garage when not in use. But facts had never stopped Claudia before. Her surveillance escalated quickly. She began loitering near my garage at odd hours, holding her phone at waist level to take photos. Once, I even found a baby monitor tucked behind my hedge, presumably to listen for what she called rebellious engine noises. I returned it to her doorstep with a note suggesting she use it for actual babies instead of grown men's vehicles. Things turned bizarre when Trevor started calling me stepdad whenever he saw me. This began after I politely declined his request to just sit on the bike for a second. Naturally, Claudia blamed me for seducing her child with what she termed dangerous masculinity, words she actually used at an HOA meeting I attended specifically to file a harassment complaint. That meeting was a circus. Claudia called an emergency session in her own living room, claiming the community room was being fumigated. No other board members showed up, yet she declared herself unanimously vindicated and my complaint dismissed. She even typed up minutes afterward, listing herself as president, secretary, treasurer, and sole attendee. Everything came to a head last Tuesday. I was working from home, still on that important call with Attorney Harrison about an unrelated HOA fraud case in Gainesville, discussing embezzlement patterns, when I heard a metallic scraping noise from my garage. Looking through the window, I saw Trevor attempting to start my Harley with what appeared to be a butter knife. The motorcycle swerved violently, tossing Trevor straight into my cherished Alia bushes. Almost on cue, Claudia appeared as though she'd been waiting off stage for her dramatic entrance. She pulled Trevor onto the lawn, where he immediately launched into a melodramatic display of pain and anguish. Without hesitation, Claudia dialed 911, insisting that I had lured a minor using, in her words, weaponized transportation. Yes, she actually used that phrase with the dispatcher. Fortunately, technology was on my side. My phone captured the entire scene. Claudia shrieking about imaginary ordinances, Trevor wailing like a professional actor despite his complete lack of injuries, and me calmly offering lemonade to anyone present. Attorney Harrison, listening in, had front-row access to Claudia's hysteria and Trevor's theatrics. The state attorney's office received, in real time, a perfect example of harassment and fraudulent reporting. When the officers arrived, Claudia unleashed her pre-written monologue about saving children from dangerous motorcycle owners. She even referenced something called Homeowner Sovereignty Clause 12C, a pure invention of her imagination, before demanding that I be arrested for violating her son's supposed civil right to enjoy motorcycle ownership. Sergeant Peterson, the lead officer, clearly struggled not to laugh. "Ma'am," he replied evenly, "refusing to hand over your personal property isn't a crime. In fact, your son trying to steal this motorcycle is the actual crime here." Claudia's face flushed a deep shade of purple. She ranted about my so-called antisocial behavior, accused me of corrupting the neighborhood's youth with my rebellious lifestyle, and vowed to escalate her complaints all the way to the mayor, the governor, and even the president. That's when Peterson recognized her. "Aren't you the lady who called us about the satanic skeleton last Halloween?" he asked. Indeed, Claudia had once reported a neighbor's plastic Halloween decoration as devil worship and demanded a SWAT team. The officers exchanged telling looks. They then reviewed my security footage, which clearly displayed Trevor breaking into my garage and attempting to steal the bike. They also listened to my recorded call, which Harrison confirmed he documented for quality assurance. The evidence was undeniable. Trevor's stunt was officially categorized as tampering with private property and attempted theft. Claudia, meanwhile, earned herself a citation for filing a false police report and wasting emergency resources. The officers explained that crying wolf about fake crimes is, in fact, an actual offense. Claudia tried to justify her actions by citing her role as HOA president. But Peterson quickly reminded her that vigilante justice was not outlined in the bylaws. The fallout came fast. Word of Claudia's antics spread before the upcoming HOA meeting, thanks in part to Dale, who suggested to Harrison that the session be broadcast on local access television for civic education. The county approved, praising the idea of transparent HOA governance. The meeting drew a crowd larger than anyone could remember, standing room only, with neighbors showing up carrying popcorn. Claudia tried to dominate the agenda, but Patricia Garrett immediately called for a vote of no confidence. Claudia attempted to stall by reciting passages from The Art of the Deal, insisting it granted her executive immunity as a fellow business person. The vote was decisive. 3 board members voted for her removal, 2 abstained out of fear, and Claudia naturally voted to grant herself both a raise and expanded powers. Unfortunately for her, the bylaws, ones she'd neglected to read thoroughly, only required a simple majority. She was stripped of her presidency on the spot. As part of her settlement to avoid criminal charges, Claudia was forced to pen a public letter of apology to me. Attempting to appear intellectual, she drafted it in Latin, relying on Google Translate. The result, when published in the community newsletter, roughly translated to, "My sorry Harley daddy of sin." The neighborhood found it so hilarious that several residents had it framed. Trevor, meanwhile, received a no-contact order forbidding him from approaching my property. The HOA bylaws were revised to outlaw what they cleverly defined as aspirational theft, stealing something merely because you really want it. Claudia was also ordered to pay $5,000 in legal costs and fines. Outraged, she shrieked in court, "That's theft! That's extortion! I'll sue every single person in this room!" The judge calmly explained that threatening to sue the court itself constituted contempt, and promptly added another $1,000 to her penalties. Claudia's face drained from purple to pale white as she realized her modest HOA president's stipend wouldn't come close to covering the debt.